CBS News Miami.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Najahe Sherman, and welcome to CBS News Miami's 4 p.m. Quickcast. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Off the top, voters will decide races in Hialeah, Homestead, and Surfside. But there are two races that are being closely watched. CBS News Miami's Terry Hornstein has the details.
In Miami Beach, Mayor Dan Gelber's position is up for grabs. He was termed out and can't run again. There are 4 candidates up for the seat. They are former State Representative Mike Greco, former City Commissioner Michael Gongora, Vice Mayor Stephen Miner, and former MTV exec Bill Rohde. One of the biggest concerns for residents in Miami Beach, public safety.
Number one is police visibility, and we have a new police chief working closely with him. That is the number one deterrent. But we also have a municipal prosecution team here in Miami Beach. We're at 90% success rate.
Need to get out of the cars more. They need to be on the beat. Need to have a real-time crime center up and running. More surveillance cameras.
I'm the only one here with a law enforcement experience. I was the one that brought the RNC show, solved our problems for Memorial Day.
I'm the Miami Beach police endorsed candidate. I'm working with them to put more police out on the streets, to increase the police budget.
Another big race that's gotten a lot of traction, the City of Miami Commission District 1 seat. Commissioner Alex Diaz de la Portilla was suspended after he was arrested back in September on corruption charges. He denies those charges. 3 men and 1 woman are trying to win that seat. We asked the candidates there what they believe the biggest issue in their district is.
Number one, the lack of transparency and the corruption is running rampant in the city of Miami today.
Let the residents of Miami know that there is finally someone from the community, not a career politician, that is ready to open the doors of City Hall, to answer the phone.
Affordable housing, number one, and the streets.
The most important is the rent control.
Diaz de la Portilla is still running despite his arrest, but he could be suspended again if he wins. We reached out to him but haven't heard back just yet. The winner needs to have more than 50% of the vote, and with 5 people running, it is likely this heads to a runoff. The District 2 and District 4 seats are also up for vote.
That was CBS News Miami's Terry Hornstein reporting. There are no elections today in Broward. Polls close at 7 p.m. in Miami-Dade. Don't forget your photo ID. For a full breakdown of all of the races, just go to our website at cbsmiami.com. The Miami-Dade Community Commission shelved potentially historic legislation. On the table was the chance to pass the first local heat standard for outdoor workers. CBS News Miami's Joe Gorcho explains the pushback against the proposed law.
Commissioner Danielle Cohen-Higgins called the legislation an overreaching heat sanction, adding it could potentially kill industry. The 2 industries at the focal point to protect outdoor workers from heat, construction, and agriculture. In the early morning hours inside the government center, hundreds gathered in lines, hoping to grab a seat to the debate on the dais. Many were left waiting outside while those inside were asked to stand up in favor or opposition. Bill sponsor District 9 Commissioner Keon McGee wants guaranteed protections for Miami-Dade outdoor workers, such as water rest and shade breaks, and wants teeth to the measure with fines and accountability for violators. Those against believe in education and teaching best safety practices when working in extreme heat. However, they stand against how the county would enforce and issue fines and say that a heat standard for working should come from the state or federal level.
We're all for awareness, education, rest, water, shade. Labor laws are typically managed by the federal government or the state in some occasions, but we already have to deal with OSHA, which is the occupational safety organization at the federal level that has not only the right budget, but the really well-trained personnel to identify violations in a proper manner.
The educational component has always been something we've been pushing for, but we also understand that, there are going to be other violators who are repeat violators that we have to make room for, and we have to position ourselves on how to deal with them when they do engage in repeat offenses.
So the proposed legislation will be re-examined and potentially voted upon in March of next year at 6 o'clock. We'll hear from the workers themselves and why they are calling on the county to step up and create laws to enforce safe working conditions in the heat. Joe Gorcho, CBS News Miami.
Happening tomorrow, Republican presidential candidates will face off in their third primary debate right here in Miami. Here are the candidates who have met the criteria and will take part in the debate. Chris Christie, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Tim Scott. Former President Trump will not take part. Instead, he will hold a rally in Hialeah. Expect street closures. That includes parts of Palm Avenue, West 2nd Avenue, and 45th Street. Roads leading into Palm Avenue will also be closed. Closures begin at 9 a.m. and go until midnight. And make sure you join CBS News Miami tomorrow night at 7:30 for a debate preview streaming online and on our app. That's after the debate at 10. We'll have analysis on our stream and on TV 33, followed by a wrap of all of the events on CBS News Miami at 11.
Always alerting, always tracking. This is Next Weather.
And taking a live look outside at beautiful downtown Miami, let's get right to Next Weather meteorologist Cindy Pressler. Cindy, this weather is everything.
It is. It's beautiful, and we're going to see this a long time for the next few days. We're just moving our camera there. 84 degrees right now in Miami. There have been some turkey vultures that have been hanging around. You might have noticed them in the sky. We've got a few clouds out there, but really overall, this is a really pretty day. We're looking ahead to the same kind of weather all the way through, maybe a coastal shower, gradual warming. Did you see that turkey vulture just go through? Gradual warming trend, and maybe a few showers by this weekend. But other than that, very calm, quiet conditions. 82 in Homestead, Fort Lauderdale right now, 81 degrees. These temperatures are so comfortable. A little bit of low-level moisture getting in here, but we're not going to see any showers out of that. High pressure will be dominant as we head through this week. Into this weekend, another front tries to get in here. Until then, temperatures topping out in the mid-80s, overnight lows in the mid-70s, mostly dry into the weekend.
1 month after Hamas carried out its terror attacks in Israel, the Prime Minister says Gaza is encircled with Israel Defense Forces operating inside it. CBS News Miami's Skylar Henry reports from Washington, D.C.
Israeli Defense Forces released video Tuesday showing the destruction of a tunnel in Gaza, which they said was a Hamas structure. Israel's defense minister says for the first time in decades, Israeli forces are in the heart of Gaza City as they try to dismantle the terror organization responsible for the attacks on Israeli communities a month ago today. The ground war is expected to be long and difficult. Hamas released footage showing what it says are Hamas fighters targeting Israeli military positions. As the fighting intensifies, many Palestinian civilians remaining in Gaza City fled. Some expressed support for Hamas as they evacuated.
Even I'm not Hamas, but all the Palestinian people together with Hamas, and Hamas is the beast.
Hamas says the death toll in Gaza is now more than 10,000, including thousands of children. Israel continues to reject calls for a ceasefire until Hamas releases the hostages. Relatives of some of the 240 held captive visited lawmakers here in Washington to share their stories. This man's 9-year-old cousin, Ohad, is among the hostages.
Ohad had a birthday 2 weeks ago. He's a smart, sweet boy. He shouldn't spend his 9th birthday in captivity. He should not be in captivity at all. No kid should and no civilian should.
In Tel Aviv, Israelis held a moment of silence to mark the 1 month since the attacks, remembering the 1,400 killed and the hostages waiting to come home. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Washington.
More news when we come back. Welcome back to CBS News Miami's 4 p.m. Quickcast. The Supreme Court is leaning towards upholding a gun ban for domestic abusers. CBS News Miami's Natalie Brand joins us live from Washington, D.C. with the details. Natalie.
Hi, Naja. And at issue in this case now before the court is a nearly 30-year-old law that makes it easier to keep guns away from individuals with domestic violence protection orders against them. And victims and survivors who spoke outside the court today say this can be a matter of life or death.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
Outside the U.S. Supreme Court, a call to keep guns out of the hands of domestic abusers.
What is at stake in this case?
a million gazillion lives of men, women, and children.
Amanda King told us she nearly lost her life to an abusive husband.
I was in shock. I couldn't believe that he just shot me in the back of the head.
She's among the women who shared their stories while arguments unfolded inside the U.S. Supreme Court.
Guns and domestic abuse are a deadly combination. As this court has said, all too often, the only difference between a battered woman and a dead woman is the presence of a gun.
Lawyers for 23-year-old Zaki Rahimi are challenging the constitutionality of the 1994 law that led to his indictment for possessing a firearm while having a restraining order against him. He was arrested after shooting his gun in public 5 different times.
You don't have any doubt that your client's a dangerous person, do you?
Your Honor, I would want to know what dangerous person means.
Well, I mean, someone who's shooting, at people, that's a good start.
The Biden administration argues that last year's Supreme Court decision in the U.S. versus Bruin case has muddied the waters. That ruling said history and tradition should determine whether laws regulating firearms are constitutional.
Once the court corrects the misinterpretation of Bruin, then I think the constitutional principle is clear. You can disarm dangerous persons.
Legal analysts say a majority of justices appears poised to uphold the law to protect victims of domestic violence.
Now, a decision is not expected until next June, but again, attorneys for some of the gun safety groups out there today, they say they feel very optimistic. And among those speaking at that rally, that included a survivor of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School massacre, as well as March for Our Lives advocates from Florida. Naja.
Natalie, thank you very much for that report. Betting on sports is big business, and the American Gaming Association says the numbers continue to rise. CBS News' Jim Axelrod looked at the impact of sports gambling on the integrity of college sports.
In the last 5 years, gambling on college sports has changed the way people interact with the games off the field. And we wanted to know if it was affecting what was happening on the field as well.
When Iowa took on Iowa State in September, some players from both sides were sidelined, facing criminal charges for their alleged involvement in sports betting. And experts say this happens more than you think. These scandals in college sports have raised questions for the NCAA. I sat down with NCAA President Charlie Baker, who's very concerned, especially about prop betting. And this type of betting is a side wager on parts of a game that may have nothing to do with the final outcome.
My concern about prop betting is just that putting myself in the shoes of a young person who's on a campus, who has a friend or two that come up to them and say, I love you. I've always supported you. I bet on the team last weekend and you played really badly and I lost a lot of money and it's going to be a problem for me. What I'd really appreciate is if you could just miss your first couple of free throws this week. It won't affect the outcome of the game, but it would really help me deal with what happened last week when you let me down. And I just have visions of conversations like that taking place all over college campuses.
Charlie Baker and I also spoke about how it's not just fair play that's under threat. He worries about physical risks from gamblers targeting players. You can watch more of my interview coming up. I'm Jim Axelrod, CBS News. Back to you.
Wow, you can see Jim's full report coming up tonight on the CBS Evening News. That's the CBS News Miami Quickcast. I'm Najahe Sherman. Stay tuned for more news right here on CBS News Miami.